All right. Okay. So good evening, everyone. I think our webinar will begin right now. All right. So hello, everyone. My name is Gina, and today I will give you guys Silicon Valley private schools overview since it's already September, right? It's our 2024 application season has already begun. I think some parents, they very interested in the private school. They already began to prepare about this, right? And today, we will give an overview of the Silicon Valley private schools and how to do this application, how to prepare, and we will mainly focus on the two main enter grades. So which two? The pre-K and the grade 6, grade 7. Okay, we'll mainly focus on these two grades. All right, if everyone are ready, let's get started. So firstly, let me do a quick introduction. So my name is Gina. I was graduated from Cornell University, and right now I'm the lead of the Silicon Valley marketing team in the Think Academy US. So for the parents who didn't know us, so we came to US in 2019, and we dedicated in the mass education from pre-K to K-12. Okay, so here's the Think Academy. And also, we actually produce a lot of information about the private schools, about some articles, blogs, and some Instagram. And also, you can search the Think Academy US in Instagram. You can find us, and we will post a lot of private schools posts, and also on the Facebook. And yeah, and we also have a private schools book actually at the end of this webinar. It's 130 pages. So, and you guys will get the link to register for this private schools application guide. Okay. All right. So firstly, let's go over our today's agenda. The first part, we will talk about the private school versus the public schools educational philosophies. Right. And second part, we will go over the private schools in Bay Area, and also the 2024 application season, how to apply the private schools and how to plan from the application to the enrollment. It's a long-term planning. Okay, so let's come to the first. Okay, so before we really get started, actually here's our private school webinar calendar. So today's webinar is our second webinar. And actually, we still have 2 and more webinars in the future since the September and October is really important 2 months about the private schools application, right? And we already have a how to choose between public and private schools. And this webinar will be already be held by teacher Jimmy, and it's in September 8. And today's my webinar, and in the future we get the hardware and basics comparison, and then the October 5th we'll get the niche private schools webinar. And there's a lot of webinars in the future. You guys can scan this QR code, enter in our WhatsApp Bay Area group, and we will share a lot of private school information and all of these webinars information in that group. Okay. All right, so I'll give you guys about 5 seconds to scan this QR code. You guys can enter this Bay Area group. All right. And also in this group, you guys can easily find me. My name is Think Gina. Okay. All right. And then let's firstly look at other differences between the private and public schools. So why we need to cover this part, since today is already a private schools webinar, right? Because I think some parents still hesitate between the private school and public schools, right? If you already decide if you're still deciding between these 2 different kinds of schools, can you type 1 in the chat box if you still didn't make the decision yet? Can you type 1 in the chat box? You still want to consider about the public schools? Let me see. Do we still have parents that still consider about the public schools? Well, no. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. Yes, we do have some parents still designing public school, right? Okay, let's firstly go over these parts. So from these 4 different aspects, we will look at the difference between these 2 different kinds of schools. Actually, there's no absolutely good or absolutely bad, right? So there's just different educational philosophies between these two different kinds of schools. So the first part is the educational objectives and the educational methods. From the community involvement and the curriculum offerings, we'll talk about this from these four different aspects, right? All right, and let's look at the first part. So from the educational objects, for public schools, I think most of you guys already know, right? So public school, they will provide some equal and comprehensive education. So most of the curriculum, they're very standard, and they will align with the government standards and the objectives. So which means if you want to transfer to another school in California, so most of the public school, they'll get the exactly same curriculum, right? They're very standard, but different for the private schools. So private schools, they're very flexible. They have different specific or unique educational objects. So for example, the religious education and the arts education, or some particular educational philosophy, such as the Montessori, Reggio Emilia, or the Waldorf. Okay, these kind of different and educational philosophy. And if you students want to learn some arts and sports, you can choose these different private schools, right? And all the private schools, they get different textbook, different teaching materials. Some public schools, they even don't have a textbook. Yeah, we will talk about this later. So here's the big difference between the public and the private. And from the educational methods, yeah, public schools are very standardized. They got the standardized curriculum settings. They got standardized assessments. So for some parents, they want to know the student, their case, like studying level or the how did they get the good grade. So among all of the students in California, if they want to do this kind of evaluation, so maybe public schools are a very good choice because they got very standardized assessments and the curriculums. You can easily to find out what's the level that your case among all of these students. But it's different for private schools. So each different private school, they get the different textbooks, right? And private school, they get really high degree of flexibility. But is this always better? Actually, this is a big concern that some parents told with me. Okay, so for example, I think some of us may heard about this private school named Avenue Sword School. Actually, this is a relatively new school in Bay Area, and this school, it didn't even have the textbook. Okay, so it's a like the project-based school, and it's like advocate for a multidisciplinary integration. So for example, they don't have the exact subjects, so they will integrate it, makes a lot of subjects into one project, and that students who finish this project, and they don't even have the GPA at the last of the semesters. Okay, so they will only give you A, B, C, D, 4 different levels. That's which level is your case in. They will only tell you this. And so some parents, they got a big concern. So we cannot exactly to evaluate the students' knowledge, or are they really understand what they learned? Yeah, so we may get these kind of concerns, right? And also, we want to set the private schools because we can base on our own educational philosophies and goals, right? So here's also a very different part of that educational methods, right, between the public and the private schools. And the third part is the community involvement. So for the public schools may place more emphasis on community involvement diversity. So here's very obvious, because public schools, the diversity is relatively high, and the students, they can meet different kind of people and from different background, different families, but it's different in private schools. So some students think that private schools is just like a small community, right? Small community, because these students are already selected and to get into these private schools, so they may very similar. They may from the very similar backgrounds. They may all of them get the good grades. Yeah, so here's the difference. If you really want to make your kids until they meet diversity people, right? Meet the diverse people and want to make them broaden their horizons. Actually, I think public school may be a good choice. But for the private schools, a private school may prioritize building specific school culture aligned with their own mission and the objects. Here's the difference. Okay, and also some public schools also, some people may think the public school maybe they have a limited extracurricular activities, but here's actually there's not correct. So some really good public schools, they do offer many activities. So for example, they may include 2 or 3 field trips per semester, and they will also invite some artists, writers, actors, or theater groups to conduct the activities at the school. I think this kind of source that private schools didn't have this kind of source, right? Because it's like the community from the society community. Okay. And yeah, all right, here's the fourth part, the curriculum offers. So public school, they all follow the Common Core State Standards, CCSS, which in California, they got the same pace of the math or the English, yeah, something like this. And for the private schools, more flexible. Like each private school got their different textbooks, and some even, for example, the state schools, they will use their own curriculum or they didn't have the textbook. And here you can see there's a little table. Actually, here's a comparison between the private school and public school, basically on their pace of mathematics. So you can see overall, so the private school approximately 1 or 2 years ahead of the public schools. They will learn fast. Okay, and here's the big difference. Okay, and so let's take a quick summary. So from my personality, so what kind of children are suitable for the private schools? So firstly, I think they need some individualized needs, right? So children who require specific or individualized teaching methods. And the second type, the specific interests or talents. So for example, some children, they're seeking some specific courses, for example, the arts, the sports, right? They can enter in these kind of private schools, right? And the third point is a small class size. So for example, children who are easily to be distracted or they are hard to focus their attention, they may need more attention from the teachers. So they cannot focus and they want to get the more attention, they can enter in these private schools, right? But why they're choosing a private or public school, the selection should be based on the different educational philosophies. There's no good and no bad. Okay. And right now, are you guys still interested about the private schools? If you ready, and can you type 6 on the chat box? And then we'll move to the private school parts. So if you're really interested in private schools and get ready to listen to all the following informations, can you type 6 on the chat box? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, and then let's move to the main part of our today's webinar. So let's take an overview of the Bay Area private schools. So why do we need to do this? So because there's so many private schools in Bay Area, right? It's hard to decide between all of these schools. So I categorized all of these private schools into 5 different categories. Okay, and we already narrowed down the scope, and then you can choose between these, right? And then you can find the most suitable like private school for yourself. All right, so our first category is the chains, the high cost effectiveness private schools, and also the second one category is academic driven and the gifted private schools and religious private schools and the niche private schools. Okay, let's first look at the first categories, the high cost effectiveness private schools. So here we took 2 as an example, the Stratford and the Challenger, right? So I think all of the students, all of the parents already heard about these 2 schools, right? The Stratford and Challenger. this very famous, very popular in Bay Area. And you guys can see, so Stratford got 26 Bay Area branches and Challenger got 10 Bay Area branches. So that is crazy, right? So for Stratford, it's 26 Bay Area branches. What's the meaning? It means if you drive a car and every like 15 miles, you can see a Stratford school, right? And also, why this kind of school that got really low tuition? Here's the reason: because they got a relatively high student to teacher ratio. For example, you can see here's a 1 to 24 student to teacher ratio. It's almost near to a public school, right? But why, if they got really high student to teacher ratio, why do we still need to enter in these private schools? That's because some parents may think the school district housing is really expensive, right? So if you want to enter to a great public school, then the school district house is very expensive. But we still want our kids get the good, like enter into the good learning environment, and they can get some good learning habits. So we can send them to these high cost effectiveness private schools, right? Okay, and here's some other common points for these kind of schools. They got really different between different campus. So here should be very careful. If you want to send your kid to a campus, you need to firstly figure out what is campus, what's the other parents' comments about this campus, because they are really different comments. Some campus may really good, but some may may a little bit not that good. Okay, so there's a huge difference. Okay, and we also got some different points between these two different kinds of schools. So the Stratford is very emphasized on balanced development. It's not very excessive competition about the academic, but different for Challenger is strong emphasis on academic excellence, especially in humanities. Okay, here's the difference. And based on the previous communication with the parents, so Stratford got the strong school parent communication, but maybe in some campus of the Challenger, they got limit school parent communication. Here's a different point. Okay, and also here's another different point. The Challenger is no high school, right? Challenger, there's no high school campus, but Stratford, they already opened a high school. I think it's this year or last year, in San Jose. So Stratford already got a high school campus. Okay, here's a big difference. Okay, let's look at the second category, the academic-driven schools. Okay, Harter and Basis. I think some parents already heard about this school. So Harter is the like top private school in Bay Area, right? So who wanna send your kids to these two schools, Harter and Basis? Can you type 3 on the chat box? Let me see how many parents wanna sign the students to these two schools, the Harter and the Basis. Okay. Oh yes, we do have some parents are very interested in Harter and Basis. Yeah, Harter is basically the top one of the private school in Bay Area, right? Okay, so these two schools, they're very academic driven, very academic driven, and they emphasize academic a lot. Okay, and you can see the student to teacher ratio is it's really lower than the Stratford and Challenger, right? It's 1 to 9, 1 to 10. And these two schools, so you can see from the tuition, actually is expensive than the Stratford Challenger, right? Especially Harter's tuition is almost 45,000. It's really expensive, right? So why Harter is really expensive? Actually, it's based on the curriculum. And we can see, so the math and English, these two subjects, they divided into different levels for each grade, which means each grade, student can enter into their suitable track about the math and English. So a very personalized teaching. And obviously they need more teachers, so the tuition is more expensive, right? And also the Harper's extra curriculums is very good. They got different kind of activities, and the sports team is really strong. Yeah, and here's I think the advantage compared with the basis, because some parents said basis there's no extracurriculum activities. The students just study. Yeah. Okay. And also, so Harter and basis, their admission criteria is really different. So Harter is maybe a higher standard for admission. So they need the parent interviews and also the IQ types and the play date. So basis is only need the parent interviews and the play dates. Okay, so here's the difference. All right. And the third category, the gifted private school. So what's the gifted private schools? I think from this name we can tell, right? We can tell. So it's designed for the gifted students. So here's the two examples, Nueva and Helios. All right. So these two are very famous gifted private schools in Bay Area. All right. These gifted private schools, I think the most common point is the curriculum is very, very flexible. So even each student can get their personalized track. Okay. And so these kind of schools, some of them, they didn't get their own teaching materials. They're really project-based learning. And you can see their student to teacher ratio is low, very low. It's 1:8. Okay, and also the tuition is really expensive for the gifted private schools, right? Okay, and another common point, if we want to enter these gifted schools, we need the IQ test, and we will talk about this later about the IQ test. Okay, and you can see the different point is the Nueva got the more courses. It's almost 130 courses and very strong emphasis on sports. All right, and yeah, these kind of schools, they also got another like specific point. Some of them, they will have the mixed grade teaching. So which means in a class, we'll get grade 2, grade 4, grade 5, different grade students in one class. Okay, it just based on the everyone's learning pace and the different learning difficulty levels to make this class. So they will get some mixed grade students in one class. And here's another point. All right, and the grade category for the religious private schools. So for example, some St. Jude's, the Valley Christian, these two schools, they're very famous, right? Some of you guys already know. Okay, so for some families already got the religion, I think they can directly enter these same religion private schools. But for some families, they didn't get the religion. Can we enter these religious private schools? The answer is yes. So these religious private schools, they will not require the family that religion actually, and they will not affect the admission results if you didn't have the religion. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. And also, so the common point for these kind of schools, they got the strong emphasis on SEL. What's that? The social emotional learning. Okay, and they're not very pushy on the academy learning, so students, they will not get a lot of pressure about the learning or studying. Yeah, and they were very like encourage the students SEL learning. Okay, and so based on the previous conversation with the parents, so all the parents, they say kids learning in these kind of private schools, they got relatively high comments about the faculties and teachers. So it's a very warm and tense community. And yeah, you guys can see the tuition is also lower than the previous different type of private schools, right? Okay, so here's the common points for this kind of private school and for the valid question. So it's very famous because the luxury facilities, they got a really huge campus, and there's only one school got their own laboratory which includes the satellite launch technology. Okay, here's the point. Okay, And the fifth category, the niche private schools. So these kind of private schools, why we call this niche? Because they got some small campus size, or no more than 150 students. And you can see, so most of them, they got the low student to teacher ratio. The tessellation actually is more and more popular recently. And already I heard some like someone said that the tessellation, the height of tessellation, and some teachers say it came from the basis, a previous work in basis. So, and then they formed this new school named tessellation. Okay, so these niche private schools, I think someone may want to enter in these kind of schools because the small campus size, so that the headmaster and the teachers, they will know the kids very well, and so the students, they learning here, they will get a lot of attention from the teachers, right? And also because they're really small campus, then everyone can get their personalized teaching, personalized track. And yeah, it's so for example, they will get the student lead teaching, and the tuition is really, I think it's really very fair. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah, here's the niche private schools. I think there's a lot of these small private schools in Bay Area, and yeah, and welcome to, if you wanted to get to know which schools, you can directly send it to me, and I will help you guys to collect more information about these schools. So hope we can learn together. Okay. All right, but also for these small schools, they do have some limitations. For example, because there's only small campus, they don't have very good facilities, especially for the sports, right? Or they do not have many extracurricular activities. Yeah, here's some limitations, and they do have these limitations. So everyone need to think very carefully when you decide to enter in these small private schools. Okay, and then after this, did you guys know more about the private schools in Bay Area? And yeah, also we'll continue about the second part, how to apply to private schools. And we will mainly cover about the timeline for the 2024 application and the general admission process and how to preparing these documents. And yeah, you guys don't forget to stay in our QR code to join our Bay Area group. Okay, we can talk about all of these private schools information in this group. Okay, and then I'll give you guys about 3 seconds if you want to stay in this QR code. All right, and then let's move to our next part, how to apply to private schools. Okay, so here, the very, very important thing is the enter grade. Why we keep emphasizing the enter grade, especially pre-K and K, and grade 6, grade 7. So why the enter grade is so important? Because the primary enter grade, it makes the largest number of students. So, you know, the largest number of students, they will make the competition least intense, right? So it's not that competitive. So when we want to enter this school, and also if we miss this enter grade, some school may require to repeating grades, right? Rotating these grades or course. Yeah, here's another thing. Yeah, so the enter grade is really, really important. Don't miss these enter grades, and we'll get a lot of chance. So in the enter grade, we can enter in this school. And yeah, so here's some examples. So enter grades, some school, they admit 40 plus students, but non-enter grades, we can only waiting for other students transfer to another schools, then they get some available seats so that we can enter. So this very hard, right? And also switching from public schools to private school in grade 2 may involve retaking some coursework, because you know private schools faster than the public schools. If students want to switch from the public to the private in grade 2, you may a little bit late back, right? Okay, so you may need to retake some courses. All right, here's the point. And then, okay, So another thing, application timeline varies from the different enter grades. So you need to pay attention to that. The application for lower grade starting and closing earlier. You need to check on the official website of this school and make sure what's the deadline for the starting and closing application. Okay. Okay, and here let's take an overlook of the application timeline for 2024, this academic year. Okay. So I think I don't need to explain this, and you guys can just maybe take a photo of this one. This is very important, right? So from August to October, okay, we need to make sure the target schools and schedule the interviews, the campus tour, and the visit as soon as possible because the spots is very limited. I think maybe if you miss this point, then you need to wait. Okay. And here's a very important timeline. You guys can take a photo. Okay. And yeah. All right. I don't need to explain more about this, I think. So next part, what do we need to prepare? So the first thing, the school visits, right? Almost all of the private school need to do that. And the application form and the interviews or some academic tests and some supplementary materials. So supplementary materials, especially for the higher grade students, they may need to get some transcripts, the recommendation letters, and the standardized test scores. Okay, so here's something that we need to prepare ahead. All right, and let's look at here. So actually some private school that got two different types of application timelines. The first one, we need to visit the school at first and then start application. So during the visiting of the school, the teacher may give you a lot of materials about how to apply and what's the material you need to prepare. They will give you some information about this, right? And then you can follow all of these procedures and then until the end. And the second type of application timeline, we need to start the application at first on the official website, right? And then you can schedule a school visits on the school official website, and you may need to wait for the available seats. And here you need to figure out, so don't get it wrong. Yeah, very carefully about this. So some school may need to visit at first. Some school you need to application at first, applicate at first. Okay. And also there's some different schools. So Harter, Basis, Helios, these schools, they need to apply first, right? And you need to open an account and then you can schedule a school visit. Okay, so here's some examples you need to figure out. All right, and okay, so the application for the private school is actually a test of the family's execution capability, and it's also a test of the child's readiness. So what's the readiness means? So I divided into two terms, the short term and the long term. So we need to prepare from the different aspects, right? Okay, so what does the readiness means from the short term part? So firstly, we need to understand the school and clarify the exam guideline. And to prepare for the standardized test, we can search for some interview experience, right? We need to familiar with these, and then you can get more confident when you do these interviews. And from the long-term wise, so we need take some advanced learning, attend some competitions, or you can attend some sports and extracurricular activities. Yeah, from these things. Okay, so firstly, let's look at the how to prepare from the short-term wise. Okay, so we'll look at how to know the school and how to prepare for the parent interviews, how to prepare for students interviews, and the IQ tests and personality tests, and also the standardized tests for the higher grade students. All right, let's look at the first part, how to know these schools. from the pre-K to K and grade 6 to grade 7, they're same. So we need to understanding these private schools from these three aspects, the values and educational philosophy. Actually, when we want to choose a private school, it's not a one-way decision, right? So actually, the school's picking us and we're also picking the school. If you find out the school's philosophy is not very matched with yours, I think we don't need to choose that, right? So we need to figure out the educational philosophy and then the school's environment and facilities. And then we can make a campus visits, right? Let's look at the first part. So how to understand the schools better. Actually, I find these three methods and can share with you guys. You just can really take a photo, right? And save this in the future. So from the first channel, we can use use the school's official websites. That's a really good channel, right? So we can look at the vision and mission of the school. And when we have the parents interviews, you may need to answer that, right? And also we can see the letter from the headmaster. So actually the headmaster, they will explain the vision and they will tell us the strengths of the schools, right, and the history, and we can quickly get all of this information from the letter from the headmaster, and also the academics. So the curriculums, how did they design, how many activities do they have, so we can look at these kind of informations from the official websites. And the second way to understand these schools is visiting these campus. So firstly, look at the facilities, right? Is this facilities new? Is this good? Do they have the capability to hold these different activities? And also during the visiting the campus, we can talk to the teachers and talk to other parents, right? You need to get to more information about this. And also actually some visit, right? Some school tour is actually already an interview. So we need to really careful. So you need to search these informations through the official website. If this says you need to bring your kids to visit our campus, and maybe it's an interview, right? This visiting may be an interview. Okay. And the third way, we can refer to some comments from the websites. For example, Niche and US News and the Great Schools, these three websites, they got a lot of information and some scores about these schools and some like students and teachers, different kinds of information, right? You guys can search these three websites and to look at the school. Okay. All right. And the second part, the campus visits. So how to do this campus visits? So firstly, what's the difference between the different various types of visits? They got some open house, the visit or tour, open day, event, right? So first type, the open house, you can enter this campus and just walk around. Maybe the campus is empty, right? It's maybe during a vacation, during the weekend. Okay, the second type is a visit. So this time, some teachers or some parent volunteers will guide you and you look around this whole campus, and maybe some students is still learning in the class. You can see the real class, right? Real students. You can feel these atmospheres in this campus. And the third type, the open house and the shadow day event. Here's an immersive, it's a whole day long experience. You can immersively experience a whole day in this school. Okay, here's the different types of the campus visits. And the second question, when can we visit the school? So from the August to October, almost all the private school, they will open some time slots for us and we can choose this. Okay. So the earlier, the better, because there's only limited slots for appointments. So we must book earlier. Okay. And the third point, do we need just some any considerations when we visiting the campus? Yes. So before visiting, we should thoroughly understand the school's educational philosophy, because some school, the campus visits is equals to interview. Okay, so we need to confirm whether the school requires the student to accompany with you. So sometimes visits service as an interview. All right, here's something we need to really pay attention to. And next part is our parent interview. So it's basically for PK to K. So maybe a higher grades, we don't need that. So it's basically for PK to K. So what the interviewers really want to know. So they want to know that your educational philosophy is really aligned with our own school's culture, right? We want to know, are you really know your kids? Or what's the kids' yearly performance during the real life, right? And so we may think about some common question types. So they will not leave these questions so far. So for example, they will ask, well, what are your family's educational beliefs? Or what do you hope your children will learn at our school, right? What are you really asking for? And how would you describe your parenting style? Or what are your reasons for choosing us? Okay, so here's some basic, very common questions. I think most private schools will ask these questions. Okay, so we need to emphasize our alignment with the school's vision and mission, and showcasing your educational philosophy. You need to match the schools. Okay, so be careful. Some schools, they got the conflict educational philosophy. So for example, the New Era and Harker, these two schools, they got really different educational philosophy. And when you take the parent interview, so maybe the interviewers will ask, what else schools did you apply? If you right now you're taking a parent interview at New Era and you said, oh, I applied Harker. So maybe they'll get really confused, right? Because these two schools, they got a really different educational philosophy. So be careful about this. So do not say that you applied to another different school. Okay. Do not say that. All right. Do not let them know. All right. So here it comes to the student interviews. Yeah, it's basically from PK to K. And I divided it to three aspects. So from the academic assessment and the social emotional learning assessment and now the IQ test. So let's look at the SEL first. Actually, this educational philosophy has been mentioned a lot during recently. Okay, so the social emotional learning is basically to help the kids to build some relationship with others, and they need to learn how to cooperate with others. Yeah, this kind of this kind of like social skills, right? Social skills. Okay, so from this part, firstly, I want to emphasize these two points. So the mathematics proficiency and the English proficiency. All right. So from the mathematics proficiency, some school may want to know about, do your kids know the classification? Did you learn about the number and quantities and operations, measurements, right? And can they know some shapes and features, some basic shapes and features, right? So here's some example. You guys can take a look about this. So here basically based on our previous parents sharing, and so some private schools, they ask how to count from 1 to 20, or some simple addition, right? Some counting backward, or +1. Do you really understand +1, right? So for example, 2 + 1 = 3, these things, and some basic shapes. And from the English proficiency, so the school want to know that your kids, they do have really good communication skills, and they can understand some basic English, right? And they can understand the English symbols, the letters, so they can better writing their own names, and also about the uppercase and the lowercase, right? They need to distinguish the uppercase and lowercase. Here's some basic part that most of the private school, they want to know. Okay. And so let's look at this SEL testing. So social emotional learning, here's the 5 main aspects, right? The self-awareness, the self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and the social awareness. Here's 5 aspects, and in different environments. So from classrooms, schools, and the home into a entire society, right? So from these different like environments, how these children learn these 5 different skills, right? So here's very important thing. You may think this hard to understand, that hard to teach. Maybe this so, right? It's just we cannot know, we cannot evaluate. But actually it can be assessed, right? It can be evaluated. How to? So we can use the play date. So here's why some private schools they get the play date. Okay, so here we got an example from the previous year's questions. School that they hold a play date for 10 children and let them coloring and playing with Lego together. So actually, from the simple play date, they can evaluate all of these 5 aspects of the skills of these children. So first step, first part, the cognitive dimension. For example, are they consciously adding patterns while coloring or playing with Lego, right? Can they know some basic shapes and features? Yeah, they can see these kind of skills. And the second point, the social emotional development, right? So how to build the relationships with others? Can they communicate with others, right? So they're doing these works individually or collaboratively, right? Did they got some fight with others, right? So we need to practice these kind of skills at home, right? So among family members, try to make them learn, try to make them get more chances to communicate with family members and let them know what's the cooperate, right? We need to cooperate with others. Okay, and here's these 2 points. And here we can see the learning method dimensions. We can let them show that, well, so for example, can they sharing resources in space, right? So when 2 children want the same toy at the same time, will they handle it? Can they negotiate? Okay, so yeah, we need to practice these kind of abilities among family members. Okay, and also the physical education and health dimension. So fine motor skills. So when we want to fetch some like small toys, can they grab it by she or her himself, right? And yeah, can they do that? Improving the fine motor skills through some activities like tracking and pen control exercises. Okay. All right. So here's some huge aspects that this playdate will want to evaluate. Okay. And also from the student interview, some school they ask for the IQ test, right? So basically the like the diff test rule. Okay, so actually we got 3 different IQ tests generally. And you guys may already know the IQ test, it can only be tested once a year. It's only once a year. So we need to really careful about this. Okay, so the 3 different types of IQ tests, the WPPSI, right? So it's facing to the ages 2 years, 6 months to 7 years, 7 months children, and the WISC, this ages from 6 to 16. It's like the older children, and right, and also the COG-AT. What's the COG-AT? The cognitive assessments. So basically, I think Harker may need cognitive assessments. Okay. And all of these IQ tests is 5 main sessions about the verbal comprehension, the visual, spatial, and the fluid reasoning, working memory, and processing speed. These 5 main sections that will be covered in the IQ test. Okay. And so what schools required, we need to figure out. So for example, Nueva need WPPSI, right? And Harter need cognitive assessment. And also some other private schools, some DFID schools, they need these IQ tests. We need to figure out what's the type of this school what's the type of IQ test this school needs. Okay, and because we know we can only take once a year, so if we want to apply different private schools, how can we know? Because we can only take one, right? Only take one. So if we want to apply, for example, 5 schools, but they're asking for different IQ tests, how can we do? Okay, so here we need to figure out what's the school that you most want to apply for. And we need to depend on the target school. What's the target school, right? What is asking for. And if you don't know what's my target school, you can just use WPPSI, because this is the most generally more universally accepted, the WPPSI. Okay, we can just take this. Okay, and then you can also private message me the IQ test. I will send you the complete list, because the IQ test is some of the on-campus or off-campus IQ test center. And here we collected some off-campus IQ test centers, and you can private message me IQ test, and I will send you the whole off-campus IQ test list. Okay, so you can find me in the Think Academy Bay Area WhatsApp group. And you can find me. My name is Think Gina. Think Gina. You can search Gina and you can directly message me. Okay. And yeah, wow, here's we see a huge table. What it is? Okay. And this is the DRDP for grade K. So what is DRDP? I collected this from the California Educational official website, educational official website. So it's the official document that they gave us, that one student at the grade K, what's the mainly skills they need to have, what the meaning skills they need to have from 6 different aspects, right? The learning abilities, social emotional development, cognitive, language, English development, and the physical development. From these 6 aspects, and they should have these, right? You can see on the right, these kind of performance about these different aspects. So almost all the private schools, they interview the students that based on these standards. Which means one student, they enter into the kindergarten, the grade K, they need to get these performance. Okay, so the private school interviews, actually it's predictable, and right? We can, based on this chart, to predict the interview, right? Basically, they're just interview all of these performance of the students. Okay, and I think, yeah, you guys can maybe take a photo, take a screenshot, and save this in the future. Yeah. Okay, so this is a standard for the grade K. Okay, and then, so yeah, in Think Academy, we do have a 7 core abilities training, actually about the focus, observations, numerical skills, logic reasoning, spatial imagination, memory, and expressiveness. Okay, so these 7 core abilities, and we will hold these webinars in the future, and you guys can keep focusing on the informations that we send it in our group chat, and we will hold this webinar in the future, and we'll get some specific training about these 7 core abilities. Okay, all right, and so we talked a lot of information about the smaller kids, right, about the pre-K to K, but right now we'll talk more about the older children's application for grade 6 to grade 7. Okay, so from the interviews and standardized testing. So first part, the interviews and presentations. So for the older children, they already got their own thoughts, right? They got their own ideas. They got a lot of their own thoughts about when they're choosing the schools. They need to know what I'm really asking for, right? They need to decide it by themselves. So sometimes you need to know the school's values, and do they have some curriculum or resources that I really need, and I have my goal. So can I enter this school? Can I finish the goal in the future? Okay, so firstly, is the school's atmosphere suitable for me, right? Here's the first question. And then the school's facilities environment, is it suitable for me? And also, this school's resources align with my goals, because in this age, some children they already know, because for example, so I want to do some sports, do some art in the future, right? We can directly choose these kind of private schools. All right. And so here from the students wise, and we can also look at the standardized testing. I think here we can pay more attention, right? Put more efforts to prepare, right? The standardized testing. So specify what the standardized test to take. So from, for example, IC, SSAT, and the school-specific academic tests. Right. So here IC and SSAT, the most common standardized test for private school. About maybe some elementary and the middle school students, they need to take IC and SSAT when they apply the private schools. So for example, some school that their individual tests, Challenger that the individual tests, and some school use IC and SSAT. These two, they both acceptable. So for example, Harter and Stratford. And also Nueva, it's not required any standardized testing and not accepted any standardized testing. Yeah, so all of the students got their own standard, right? So we also need to make sure on their official website, do they need the standardized test? Do they need IC or SSAT? Okay. And let's look at the most popular one, IC. So when do we need to take this as test? So from August to 2024's January, they're up to two times, right? From August to January. Okay. And you can see, where can we take these tests? We can choose at home, computer-based, or at school. We need to use paper and pencil to finish this test. And also we can finish this at the test center. Test center, they have both computer or paper type, right? Different type of testing. Okay. And here's some, right? Here's something that we need to pay attention to, because IC tests, they have different level we need to select. They have different levels. So for lower level, from 3rd or 4th grader students, they need to preparing to apply for 4th or 5th grade. This is a lower level. And the middle level, they mainly for the 5th to 7th grade students who preparing to apply for 6th to 8th grades. Okay, so the second one, the middle level, is the student in grade 6 and grade 7 need to take. Don't pick the wrong level. And for the upper level, from 8th to 11th grade students, and they're preparing to apply for 9th to 12th grade. Okay, so make sure what's the level is acceptable in the official website. Don't pick the wrong level. Okay, and then, so another standardized test, SSAT, right? So it's most suitable for the boarding schools. So when can we take this test? It can be taken every month, except for May, June, July, and August. And then we can take every month. And the school will take in the highest score. Okay, highest score. And some people said that SSAT actually is suitable for children who excel in humanities subjects, right? Because it said that SSAT will let students write down assignments, a whole article. So maybe it's suitable for children who excel in humanities subjects. Okay, here's another point. All right. And then, so after talking about a lot of short-term preparation, so let's take a quick look of how to prepare in the long-term wise. Okay, so you can see we need to prepare for application, and then at the next year's March, we need to decide the results, right? And then we need to get ready for the school. Okay, so when we enter the school, some school may have the placements test, right? Placements test. So here's another thing. So if you want your students to get into a really fast track, right? You will need to pass this placements test. I think you can prepare ahead. You can prepare ahead. So for example, you can attend some math competitions like Math Congru, level 1 to 2. Okay, Math Congru. So you can let them to take some exercise about the math. And yeah, and also since we're Think Academy, we dedicate to math education. Recently we got the free math trial class. Okay, so it's free, totally free math trial class. It's in-person class. And we got 4 campuses in Cupertino, Palo Alto, and Belmont and Fremont. You can choose whatever you want. And we got in all the grades, all different grades. You can see pre-K, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And even we even have the pre-algebra and algebra 1 trial class. And you guys can scan this QR code, or you can take a photo, save for the future. And we will hold this free math trial class in the future. It's 1 hour class plus 30 minutes one-on-one evaluation. Okay. All right. So everyone can scan this QR code if you really want to try our class. Okay. We got the really best classrooms, and we got really good teachers. Okay. And the in-person class students will get a lot of gifts after they finish the class. Okay, and we'll give you guys some seconds. You guys can take a photo and scan this code, register to our trial class. Okay, and then, so finally, we will have our guide for application of the Bay Area private schools. Okay, so it's totally English. Sorry, that got some Chinese, because it's a Chinese version, and we will have an English version, totally English version. We'll have 21 private schools, and we'll get a lot of parents' reviews and some real interviews in this book. Okay, it's 140 pages book. And you guys can, if you really want to get this book, you can scan this code and make the reservation. And our activity will begin on September 23rd. Okay, so you guys can pick up this guide for application of the Bay Area private schools book on September 23rd. Okay, pick up a location on our 4 campuses, Cupertino, Palo Alto, Belmont, and Fremont. It's fine. You can pick up whatever you want. Okay, so here's our guide of application book. Okay, so it's 140 pages. You guys can scan this code, make a reservation, choose the time slot that you want to pick up in the future. Okay, choose the time slot and the location. Don't forget to choose the time slot and location. Okay, so everyone can scan this code. And then, okay, I think our webinars end right now. So if you guys have any questions, you can type on the chat box, or you can directly message me. You can find me in find my WhatsApp in the Bay Area group. Okay, you can directly message me your questions. Okay, you can scan this code to join us. If you have any questions, welcome to make your questions right now. Okay, do you have any questions? Okay. If you have any questions about the preview, about the private schools and applications, or even public schools, you can ask right now. Okay, so do you not have any reviews about public high schools? Oh yeah, so about the public schools, yeah, we will in the Bay Area a good public high school. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of good public schools. And yeah, we will hold these webinars in the future, but maybe recently we're basically focused on the private schools, right? So the private school, because they need a lot of like hardware about the application, they need to prepare a lot. So basically we'll focus on the private school, but in the future we'll definitely hold some public schools webinar. And actually you can search you can go to our Think Academy official website. Okay, I will send you the name right now. And actually in our official website, we have some blogs talk about a lot of public schools and the Bay Area. Okay, so it names the Think Academy, and you can directly copy paste this name and you can search our official websites. We have a lot of blogs talk about the public schools. Okay, so next question. So how different is this process for high schools? Okay, so for high schools, it basically here's some, right? You can see, yeah, actually there's not big difference. So we need to prepare different materials. So for the high school, they'll get a higher standard for application actually. So we need to prepare more materials, especially for the personal, about maybe so students, they need to write of their personal statement when they play in the private schools, right? And also they need to give them the previous transcripts or the recommendation letters, something like this. They need to prepare a lot, but basically the process is really similar actually. And the next question, so can children transition from New Ava to Harker? Actually, I think so, but maybe here's the thing, because these two schools, they get the different educational philosophy, right? So maybe if you want to transfer from this one to another one, maybe some admission team, they will ask you a lot of questions. I think if you got a really good reason, or you got yourself reasons, you can persuade them. I think you can try. Yeah, I think maybe you can try. Yeah, so what if a young case freeze during IQ test or interview? What if a young case freezes during IQ tests or interviews? Okay, so basically, it's okay. I think so. Firstly, IQ test we know we can only take once a year, right? So maybe IQ test we cannot prepare a lot, but for interviews, I think we can familiar with this ahead, right? We can, so firstly, don't let them really scared for these. Okay, so firstly, we can let them to familiar with these different questions, with these scenarios. And if they familiar with these kind of stuff, I think maybe they will performance better during the interviews. And for the IQ test, yeah, it's a preparation for these. Actually, you can send me the message later, and actually, yeah, we will hold a 7 core abilities training in the future. It was not just like the mock interview. It's not it's more than that actually. It's more than, will help students to like foster their 7 core abilities. And I think this will all help the students to prepare for the IQ test and the interviews. Yeah, because this basically they will not leave these this main aspects, right? So just like I taught during this webinar, yeah, you can see this page, right? So it's just all around these main aspects. Yeah, so they will not leave these. Okay, and the next one. So the school is not trying to steer the children to try to make them feel comfortable. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. They will not try to steer the children. Yeah. So maybe we just need to familiar with these scenarios. Maybe some children, they usually stay at home, right? They didn't meet so many strangers. Yeah, we need to take them go for a date with other children's. Maybe you can hold a lot of play date at home, right? So let them familiar with these scenarios, and it will be fine. Yeah. Okay. So any questions? And you guys can also find me in the WhatsApp. Okay, you guys can also find me through WhatsApp. Okay, let me see. Do we have some? Any other questions? If there's no more questions, and yeah, I think everyone don't forget to join our WhatsApp, okay, Bay Area group, and it's very welcome. Everyone, you can also, if you friends need this kind of information, you can also let your friends enter our group, because we really want to provide these valuable informations to others. Okay, so don't hesitate to join us, and yeah, and we'll sign our future webinars links in our groups as well. You guys can keep following us. And I think then that's all for our today's webinar. Thank you guys to stay with us, and thank you guys for joining us. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. And have a good night. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.